Hey, pigeons. It's Victoria Weinstein, also known as Peace Bang, on November 3rd, 2016, the year from hell. So let's have Beauty Tips for Ministers, the election of 2016 edition. What a freaking time. I was at a retreat this past week, just actually got home, and we were studying worship with the wonderful Jackie Lewis of Middle Collegiate Church in New York City. She's really, really wonderful. So if you get a chance to study with her, take one of her workshops, attend one of their the festivals, or they do like a conference in I forget when it is. It's April 28th. Go to it. Go to it. Definitely check out what they're doing there. They're beautiful, and so it's very special. So it was a really important time for colleagues to be together. And, we were just talking about preaching and ministering in this moment. We are not, equal to the times. Of course we're not. When are we ever? And our people know that. Okay. So the first thing I want to say, and this is just a little, how to take care of ourselves video. The first thing to know is just do not freak about giving the all-time brilliant election sermon and post-election sermon. Because we're in the moment with everybody else. We're living it too. We don't have, how our leadership training, always encourages us to have the balcony view of the dance floor, the Heifetz model. We can't be up on the balcony in this situation. We're on the dance floor with everybody else. But by our training and our vocation, our calling, we are trying as best we can to interpret the times within the context of ancient wisdom from our religious traditions, contemporary wisdom, our learning, our study, our studying of contemporary works, our theological training. We have the theological lens. So don't doubt that. Don't doubt that you have that. We are in a moment that is fraught, obviously, but I want to encourage you in terms of, we talk a lot on here about our affect, so our the way we use our bodies in presiding, the way that we look, the way that we are ready to be seen, which is not just preparing that written content or the content that you will be sharing with your congregations. That's, the verbal, the content, etc. I'll talk about some of that in a minute. But I want to talk about your affect right now, and really our affect, and how we, in times that feel particularly fraught, we can sometimes perform sorrow on behalf of our people. And I mean the maudlin tone of voice. I mean the downcast eyes. I mean a little of the dramatics in giving of prayer, the tone of, the plodding funereal, I'm so deep, I'm feeling this so deeply tone of voice. Please, please practice and rehearse what you're doing so that you do not succumb to that temptation, because it doesn't serve the liturgy, the content, the people, or God. Now, I'm not saying to fake it, like, yay, but I'm saying that there is an energy that we must bring to what we are doing, regardless of the content. We are people of God. Our faithfulness informs us that God is at work here. If only human beings are at work here, you know what, I'm sorry, because I can't live in that world. But if something greater is at work here, the forces of history, the universe, the earth, I don't know, whatever my God is a God who acts in history. And when I get up there and emote and get over dramatic like I'm the chorus of a Greek tragedy and not a woman of faith being present to what's happening in our world, then it's distracting, and it's an, I think, very it's manipulative. Okay, it's emotionally manipulative because you're telling people you need to be. We are all here. Well, not everybody might be there. I don't know. But the point is that we cannot project our own emotional state in some intentional way onto the community. Please stay energized, stay grounded. Because if you look like you're driving off the road into the high weeds of like, you might feel like, I'm scared. Don't bring that to your worship presiding. And also, when it comes to our content, it was interesting. I checked in with my music director today, and I wanted to use a closing hymn after the sermon, and it was a different one that she had suggested, so I wanted to check it out with her. And I said, "So, what do you think of that?" And she said, "I'm afraid that it could possibly be melodramatic." And I was so grateful that she had that insight. And I was like, yeah, you know what? If I didn't set it up right, it really could be, because it's one of those hymns. Everybody knows it. It comes with a lot of emotional content already attached to it. And I was, we decided to move it to a different place in the service. But it was just such a great insight because it was exactly connected to that concern that I have of not going into this, yanking people's heartstrings and like pulling tears from their eyes, or worry or concern. None of those things make us deeper or more faithful, And so, anyway, it was just a great insight. And it also, thinking through this service, has reminded me also that there are no prayers that we have that any of us could ever devise that will contain enough for all the things that we want to pray for. So let's not try, okay? Let's not try. Because when you load up the prayer with everything, every place in the world, Standing Rock, Syria, the streets of Chicago, wherever the latest killing has been of an unarmed black man, if we just keep loading up places and concerns, and it becomes a kitchen sink prayer. And then, dear Lord, we lift up to you, then this sick person and that thing and this cause. We're not responsible for doing that. That does not lift our prayers to God's concern, more so than a couple of heartfelt phrases and silence. Please remember to leave room for silence, and because in the silence we feel our uncertainty and our lack of control. And I think pastorally that's a really important thing for us to be able to hold in this moment. Like, there are silences because we can't articulate everything. Also, God knows them. I mean, if God is the energy, presence, sovereign thing, the ultimate source of love and the creative love that gives forth our being, then we don't have to explain everything to that God. We certainly don't need to explain it all to the community, because it just becomes words, words, words. And I would also ask you, in terms of your arts of, our writing, please be aware of how many metaphors you are including in any litany, prayer, or sermon. Because 4 or 5 metaphors it's too many, and they get mixed. There's rivers, there's mountains, there's we are this, we are that, and then I'm just like, what? It's word, and then it just becomes this word salad of like beautiful phrases, and I can't follow the through line of what what the minister is trying to say and where they're trying to bring me. So edit. And I know it seems ridiculous, like the world could be, I mean, my friend joked to me today at breakfast. We were all looking at each other like, who knows, what's going to happen next. And he joked, in that way that we have of joking. He said, they're not going to have food this good in the camps. And it just made my blood run a little bit cold because it was like, yeah, that's right, they do. They come for the professors and the clergy first, don't they? So I don't want to joke about that, but we do, it's just part of how we all cope. Um, so I actually kind of lost my train of thought, but of course. Um, but it seems so silly to focus on our art form, worship, preaching. But that is what we're called to do. Communities are relying on us to have something to say, and also to have something to say not just this week, but the week after that, and the week after that, because we go on, until somebody says we can't. And, that happens in some countries. They do say you can't. But again, if we spin out in anxiety and worry and projecting, don't bring it to your church. Jackie Lewis in our retreat kept talking about the importance of having a therapist or at least a spiritual director so that you can, as she said, take it there. Let's not take our agita there, okay? We have faith claims to make. And we have to be in a place internally where we can make those faith claims in a way that is actually authentic. If you can't do it authentically, I'm going to ask you to really work hard to get to a better place before you get into that pulpit on Sunday. And so whatever you have to do, and you know what, and I've said this 1,000 times, but part of getting your interior self prepared is getting your game face on. So whatever you have to do between now and Sunday to release your anxiety, to get out in nature, to breathe deeply, do a facial, get extra exercise, whatever it is for you. I mean, some of us may be fasting or doing some kind of, the things that we do externally, like extra exercise or yoga or whatever. I mean, it seems like, like it's not important, but you think about how ancient these practices are. Putting on beautiful garments, taking ritual baths, giving yourself a facial. I mean, it's not so far removed, from a mikveh bath or some kind of ritual purification, right? Get a manicure, have somebody touch your hands. Get a pedicure, have somebody, whose job it is and who is an expert, take care of your feet because you're walking a hard walk. Some of you are, by the way, walking literally with the Sioux people out in South Dakota. I'm thinking of you. It's just one of many places that we are asked to go and to show up. And like I said, we don't know how this will all turn out in the U.S. It's not going to end on November 8th. And so, we have to pace ourselves. We have to not let our presiding in worship become really, rattled or by what's happening in our world. Hold steady. This is an ancient art form that we practice. Ancient. Isn't that wonderful to think about? So many things have happened. And the church and the synagogue, and all of these forms have endured. And what we don't want to continue, though, is the tradition of having these forms of worship endure while people go la 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 meow 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 meow. We don't care what's going on in the world. I mean, that's what you don't want. So we've got to help equip our people to engage with what is and what's next. And it's a long road. What has been surfaced and made very, very apparent in the last year in the United States of America is an amplification of all our original sins, our besetting sins, our most deeply buried denials and divisions and enmity and hatred and ignorance. So we know what our work is. Okay? Don't over dramatize. Don't project and manipulate. Hold steady, be cool, be you, but don't emote. I think about the hired mourners that they had, and that they still do that in some cultures. We're not hired mourners to walk behind a casket and wail. That's not our job. So don't emote, don't overdo it emotionally. Don't scream and yell and carry on, unless that's your tradition. Maybe that's your tradition. If it's not, don't start now. Allow there to be silences. Watch your writing and your preparation for a pile-on of metaphors. Okay? Preach faithfully without the pressure to have it be the most brilliant thing you've ever given. What is that wonderful word by that wonderful phrase, Wendell Berry? It's something like, not by your will alone is the house carried through the night. God is at work in this world too, by the way. So, being faithful to that is important. And take care of yourself. Do those things that help you prepare to be seen, to be available, to be present, so that you feel like the leader that you are, and that you feel as well as you can, while we are all walking in a time of tremendous anxiety. Okay, so I am praying constantly. I'm praying for you. Please check in the comments, and let's all be there for each other. Okay? Go be beautiful.